Hey Timberline. Ever since I was a little kid, when my brothers celebrated their 11th birthday on the 11th of September, I've thought it would be phenomenal to have this golden birthday party when I would turn 24 on the 24th. And lo and behold, 24 on the 24th is today, and today is much different than I thought it would have been. I was picturing some party with lots of people and really good food, and it turns out we're going to have premarital counseling tonight on Zoom, since we're not allowed to be out and about with people. But I've also learned how okay I am with that. This season of life is very different, but I'm learning more and more what it means that Jesus is enough for each moment. And Jesus is not just enough, he's plenty. And I'm really enjoying spending time with him and with a few people talking about him and realizing that I don't need the thrills, chills, and jelly beans. And you know what? Today is a good day to celebrate being alive for 24 years. Corona and all, I'm really grateful for what Jesus has given. So, unrelated to what we're talking about today, there's three stories in the end of Mark chapter 4 into Mark chapter 5 that I find fascinating. Butch already mentioned one of them in the beginning of his message when he was talking about the disciples in the boat. So there's a storm and the disciples are in the boat and Jesus is sleeping and they wake up Jesus and they're terrified. They're terrified of the storm because the storm is threatening their life. And Jesus wakes up and he calms the storm, and then it says that the disciples were terrified of Jesus. Which makes sense. If the storm was threatening their lives, Jesus calms the storm and he's more powerful than that. That means Jesus is terrifying. Jesus is so powerful. So the next time there's a storm in your life, and the storm is saying you should freak out, and Jesus is saying you should be still, who is more powerful? Who are you going to fear, Jesus or the storm? That's what Butch shared with us. Then it goes on where Jesus goes across the sea, and he finds this one man who is possessed with a demon. And this man's wild. No one can chain him down. And the people are terrified of him, and they don't like that he's around. He's terrorizing their community. And Jesus goes up, and totally unafraid, goes up and he casts the demons out, and the man is healed. And the townspeople have a very interesting response. Instead of being in awe and thanking Jesus and being glad that he healed the man, they're, again, afraid. And they tell Jesus to go away. This seems so odd to me, and yet as I think about it, I think about the times in my life when Jesus offers me freedom, and he says, we could get rid of this negativity in your life, we could get rid of this sin in your life. And I react and I say, oh no, that doesn't sound nice. And I realize that sometimes I feel more secure and more comfortable in my familiar misery than I do in Jesus' new blessings. Because my misery is familiar and I like it, even though I'm miserable. But I would rather stay in what is familiar than be stretched into what is new. That was very challenging to me as I've thought about that, specifically in these last few weeks, because Jesus does have new and different things for us. Then it goes on into the story, talking about the woman who has an issue of blood. For years and years and years this has plagued her. I can't even fathom the pain that she's going through. And not only the physical pain, but she would have been unclean for all of those years and wouldn't have been able to relate to people. She has seen all the doctors and spent all the money and felt all of the hopeless feelings. And finally she comes up to Jesus. And she knows, I don't know how she knows this, but she knows with confidence that if she could just touch the hem of his robe, she would be healed. And so she does, and she goes up and she touches him, and her faith makes her whole, and she's healed. This is the most phenomenal moment of her life after years of agony. But then Jesus says, I felt power leave from me, and he's looking for her. Where did this power go? Who is it? And it says again, that she was terrified of him. And now part of me is thinking, come on, lady, he healed you. He's not going to hate you. And I don't know what was going through her mind. I don't know if she was afraid that he would abuse her in some way, or if he'd call her out, or if he would be angry at her because she stole power from him. But either way, she was terrified because here is this powerful man, this powerful Jesus, and he's looking for her. And so she comes up trembling, and she admits that it was her. And I think Jesus' response to her is something that we need to keep in our minds at all time. He could have scolded her, he could have rebuked her, but instead, he says, daughter, Your faith has made you well. You've done the right thing. You had good faith. Go in peace. Your suffering is over. Jesus is powerful. He is the one that we should fear more than anything. Even when the storms come, we shouldn't listen to the storms, we should listen to Jesus. Jesus is a person that we need to fear, and yet at Jesus' core, he loves us. God is love. And his desire for us is not to continue to walk in pain or misery. And we feel terrified to come to him sometimes and to bring our sin or to admit what we've done. But what he wants, when we have an honest and contrite heart and when we have faith, his response, go in peace. Your suffering is over. So, putting these three stories together, people's responses are very odd. But when we're facing a storm in life, let's remember that Jesus is more powerful than the storm. And when Jesus is coming and presenting very new things to us, maybe they're really uncomfortable and we don't feel prepared for them, let's not turn Jesus away. Let's embrace him and say, where you lead, I follow. And no matter what the story is in our life, whether we're confessing sin or going through a different struggle, let's come to Jesus knowing that Jesus invites us to bring our weaknesses and bring our struggles to him so that he can bear the burdens that are too heavy for us to bear. Let's respond in faith and confidence that God has us. And let's let him say, well done, my child, my good and faithful servant. You have done well. Go in peace.